this has to be the first time in history that anyone, never mind the leader of a very powerful country, has been offered a nomination publicly by a man who has been indicted by the ICC as a war criminal.
At the Times of World Affairs editor Catherine Philp joins us now. Morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Stig.
There was no real outcome to the talks, it struck me, between Netanyahu and Trump, but just hearing from Ehud Olmert there, Netanyahu eventually wants still to occupy Gaza, and there's still this discussion of the Trump-style Riviera of the Middle East, isn't there?
Yes, indeed. So I suppose that raises the question of what peace in Gaza would look like. But I think that even before we get to that longer term aspect of what each side has in store, what plan they have in store for Gaza, there's also this issue of what a ceasefire means to either side. I mean, Trump wants this war to end. He wants to notch this up as yet another conflict resolved. Netanyahu doesn't. He's looking at a temporary ceasefire, a 60-day ceasefire. He's not that interested in a full ceasefire. And so the two men may be talking at cross purposes when they actually use that word during the further discussions that they're going to be having in Washington.
And what will flow from that, do you think? Does it feel to you that a ceasefire of some description, I mean, there's been ceasefires in the past that have not lasted and they don't necessarily mean anything long term. Is there a sort of short term ceasefire on its way, do you feel?
I mean, there could be. We had one in January, but I mean, look at what a parlous state that descended into. I mean, with Gaza, in almost a worse state than ever, with the world's attention drawn elsewhere with the bombardment of Iran, and obviously these reports of the shooting of now hundreds of civilians in the context of these kind of enforced militarized humanitarian aid distribution points that have caused so much controversy and so much bloodshed for the people of Gaza.
Meanwhile, just finally, Catherine, Trump says he'll defend more defensive weapons to Ukraine. So maybe he's recognised that a quick end to the war there's not happening either because Putin isn't playing ball.
Yes, and his tone was very interesting when he got off. When he was getting on a flight, and he said that he wasn't happy at all with Putin and that he'd got nowhere. It sounded almost despondent, as if like he'd realised that this whole peacemaking thing is that much harder than he thought. And that could have gone two ways before he had that phone call with Zelensky, that perhaps he could have just decided it was time to walk away as he had threatened. But it looks like that he's actually gone the other way, and he is going to send those weapons to Ukraine. But these are not, again, those weapons that he stopped previously, they weren't weapons that he had ever pledged to give. They were weapons pledged by the previous Congress that appeared to have been stopped by some of the isolationists at the Pentagon. So really, it was a question of Trump actually more asserting his authority over the Pentagon, I think. I mean, I think the wild card in all of this is Netanyahu offering him very publicly this nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize, which slightly reminded me of Keir Starmer, unveiling the invitation for a state visit, which was, of course, Trump's idea, not Starmer's originally. But I think this has to be the first time in history that anyone, never mind the leader of a very powerful country, has been offered a nomination publicly by a man who has been indicted by the ICC as a war criminal. It's
an irony that several of our listeners have pointed out over the course of the morning, actually, Catherine, as well. Good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Catherine Philp there, the Times World Affairs editor. And who is the world leader who's got the most out of Donald Trump in his second term? You could argue it's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. After all, President Trump sent his bombers halfway around the world to attack Israel's enemy, Iran. So how does Netanyahu do it? There was a bit of a clue last night at the White House where Netanyahu had a gift for the president.
I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee it's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, Bibi.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
There we go, getting on very well. But what does it mean for the chances of a ceasefire in Gaza? Former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, joins us now. Ed, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What did you make of that gift of Netanyahu nominating Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I first of all hope that President Trump will indeed achieve peace in any part of the world, preferably, of course, in the Middle East, between Israel and the Palestinians. And then I very much wish for him that the recommendation coming from Netanyahu to a peace prize, a Nobel Peace Prize, will be useful.
But you don't think he's earned it yet? You don't think he's earned a Nobel Peace Prize yet, Donald Trump?
Well, I don't sit in the committee and I don't know precisely the regulations, but I'm sure that if he will be given, he will be recognized to have a Nobel Prize for peace, that there will be some peace that he achieved.
Yeah, he has to achieve the peace. Are you surprised that no ceasefire agreement has been reached between Hamas and Israel?
No, I don't think that there is any ceasefire agreement, and we're still waiting to see what has this meeting between the two produced by way of a ceasefire that will allow us to release the hostages that are now abducted by the Hamas.
Sky News have been reporting testimony from an IDF soldier who said he was ordered to shoot Palestinians indiscriminately when they entered arbitrary no-go areas. Are you concerned, Ehud Olmert, that it's not peace we're discussing, but probably war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers?
Well, I'm not familiar with the specific testimony, but if there is such testimony, it has to be investigated immediately by the Israeli authorities, and the sooner the better. It must be clear that no one in the Israeli government or in the Israeli army has ever given orders to shoot indiscriminately. If that was done, this is a war crime, and if the war crime was committed, it has to be taken care of in the most severe manner.
Do you think it's plausible that war crimes have been committed in the last year by the Israeli forces?
I'm certainly afraid that it has been done. You know, I don't have evidence for any specific event, but you must have heard that I already said it publicly in numerous occasions, including in international interviews, including in articles that I wrote, that a war which has no objective, which has no purpose, which can't achieve anything that is worth the cost, and at the same time, soldiers are being killed, hostages may lose their lives, and many innocent, non-involved Palestinians are killed. This in itself is a crime. And it is perpetrated, unfortunately, by the Israeli government. So I can't be indifferent and I can't ignore it. And I have to spell it out.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the future of Gaza still is deeply in question. There's a story today that the Defense Minister Israel Katz has laid out plans to compel Palestinians to go to a camp within the ruins of Rafah. He calls it a humanitarian city. We're all alive to the notions of driving people into camps and what that might signify, particularly to people in Israel. What do you make of that sort of an idea?
Every morning when I wake up, I wonder what will be the new creative imagination of the Israeli Minister of Health suggesting to us and to the international community. So today there is a new camp for the Palestinians that, according to his plan, will have to be deported from where they live now, from the ruins, from the rubbles of what was their home, into a new temporary camp. And this is nonsense. This is competition. The more the spirit or the smell of elections is spreading in the Israeli political landscape, the ministers and the members of the Knesset in the Likud party are getting into the competition of throwing all kinds of extreme suggestions that may win them some votes in their political base. This is totally unacceptable. The idea is, I think, is dangerous, and I hope that it will disappear soon.
Do you react strongly? Because, of course, we all know when we think of camps, we think of people being driven. And I don't want to make false historical comparisons, but it must be there in people's minds, people in Israel who live under the shadow of the Holocaust, and they're very conscious of what's happened to people when they're herded into places they don't want to go. Is it wrong to think in terms of camps like that, or is that ahistorical? Does it occur to you when you weigh up these type of plans?
Obviously, there is no basis for comparison, and I don't want to fall into this trap. But this in itself, the way it is presented, the way it sounds, the overall impact of what has happened already in the last couple of years, in spite of the fact that initially, of course, the Israeli reaction against Hamas was inevitable and unavoidable and absolutely justified considering what they have committed on the 7th of October. I think what has evolved over the last couple of years, the number of people killed in Gaza now exceeding maybe 60,000. Of course, among them, there were many Hamas fighters that deserve the punishment, but there were thousands of kids, thousands of mothers and parents and elderly people that were killed. And this is not something that can be ignored. This is not something that can be dismissed as an inevitable collateral damage. And I don't need to draw any unnecessary comparison to the history of the Jewish people to be completely against it, to criticize it, and to fight against these policies and against these actions by the Israeli government, to condemn the Israeli government for being part of it everywhere I can.
Netanyahu has also said overnight that Israel will always keep security control over Gaza. Does that imply an occupation to you?
He certainly wants occupation. Don't forget that he is the partner of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, the two messianic extreme right-wing fundamentalists that want to deport all of the residents of Gaza in order to prepare Gaza for the resettling of Jews. So I think that the military occupation is a preliminary stage, perhaps to achieve that which they claim all the time is the real ultimate objective of the war. And of course, this is totally unacceptable, and we'll have to fight it this and nail everywhere we can.
It's great to speak to you and hear your perspective on things. Ehud, thank you for joining us.